Ladles and jelly spoons, welcome back to Badgerworks. Today, this. This is Indiana Jones. This is a part of the little diorama we've been working on, and today we're going to put some paint on him. So, let's get on with it. So yes, here he is, Mr. Jones, or Dr. Jones I should call him, I suppose, really. It's a really nice model, this, actually. I'd say I've mentioned before, but I've been very impressed with how nice this is as a model. But as I say, we're going to paint him today, so this shouldn't take too long, hopefully. So for painting, I've got a variety of colours here. I'll put up the picture I'm using as a reference. I think it's actually from one of the later films, but he basically dresses the same in all of them. So we're going to use this for his jacket. Using a lot of these Revel aqua colours. These are good for brush painting. So leather brown for his jacket. I've got to remember what I'm using all these colours for now. Brown for his belt. Then I've got this wood brown, but I'm going to use that for his hat. And then I've also got some NATO brown XF68 that I'm going to use for his trousers. And I'm actually using this XF14 JA grey for his shirt, because if you look at his shirt, it's not actually white, it's more of a greyish colour, so we're going to use that. For his skin, we're going to use primarily the Citadel colours, Kislev Flesh and Bugman's Glow, plus we'll do some other bits and pieces as well, but that's basically how we're going to do it. So, I suppose the easiest thing is to get started. Now, I apologise for the noise of the heater in the background, but it is freezing, and it literally freezing. When I came in, it was 0 degrees. So I'm not sure how well these paints are going to hold up, but we'll do what we can. Yes, so I think I'm going to start with this leather brown. Actually, shall I? No, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll start with his head and his hands and whatnot first. That's probably the easiest thing. And then we'll do his shirt, and then we'll move on from there. So his hands, we've got this one here that holds the torch. We'll cover that in another video. Then his other hand is holding the whip, and then the last piece of the puzzle that we have is the infamous fedora. So let's start with these. A brush would probably be helpful, but which brush? I think I'll start off with this flat one. Alright, let's put those over there for a second. So yes, I'm going to start with this Kislev Flesh. This is a good base colour for flesh tones, and I'm going to use these pretty much straight out the pot, just so that they cover a bit better. Where are my glasses? There they are. Right. Let's see how we get on with this. Of course, one of the issues that we have here is the fact that his, because he's 3D printed, he does actually have layer lines, but we'll deal with that as we go along. I'm sure it'll be fine. So it means that because of the layer lines, it'll be difficult to use like washes and things, because they'll just kind of settle into the layer lines rather than the detail of the model. So we might have to try and get away without using that too much. Now, I know I've mentioned it before, but I am very impressed with this sculpt, and indeed how it's been printed. Although I think personally, I would have probably done this figure and also the Han Solo figure on a resin printer. The actual diorama bit is fine on a filament printer, but I think for this I would have actually done this with a resin printer. But as I say, I didn't actually print this. This was sent to me already printed, so right, that'll do for that. I'll do his hands as well. In fact, I'll tell you what, let me get the other camera in so you can see what I'm doing a bit better. Right, I've switched to one of these Humbrol brushes, the ones they give you in the starter kits for his hands, because it'll be a bit easier to get into the detail. So figure painting really isn't my speciality, but at least it's not too bad at this scale. It's a bit easier to see what you're doing. And also you don't have to worry as much about doing like highlighting and shading and all that kind of thing, because of the size of the model. You'll get a lot of those natural high and low lights anyway, so it does make it a little bit easier. But the real trick here is we'll probably have to put several coats on to get a sort of decent coverage, but that's not the end of the world. Right, what I'll do now is I'll just go back over his face and hands alternating and just basically build up some layers to get some decent coverage, and then we'll go on from there. Right, there we go, that doesn't look too bad, does it? So I'm going to do a bit of shading now with this Bugman's Glow, but I'm going to use my wet palette and thin this right down, because this is a Citadel base colour, so it's very pigment heavy. Glasses, there we go. Right, so we'll just get some of this on here. Right, this is where it's all going to go horribly wrong. So using a thinned mix like this is kind of awkward on these 3D printed figures, because it tends to settle into the layer lines a little bit. So I'm not going to do too much, because a lot of this will kind of self shade its you know, once it's all put together. So just a little bit like that. We'll do his hands as well, and mainly with his hands we kind of want to get in between his fingers. a little bit like that. Nothing too serious. Right, now moving on from his face for a minute, I'm going to do this XF14 JA grey for his shirt. What I'm basically going to do is do the like just block in the rest of the colours, and then we'll do some shading and things on him. So I just want to get all the other colours on him first. Right, so as I say, I'll do his jacket and his trousers and everything else, and get it all blocked in, and then we'll do some shading. Alright, we'll use this XF68 for his trousers, and I think I might use this for his hair as well. Right, and while we're waiting for all that to dry, we'll do his start on his hat with this brown. And again, this is going to take a few coats to cover it well, but that's all right. It actually works out quite well because the paint settles into the layer lines and actually helps fill them up, so they're not as obvious. Right, so that's his trousers and his hair done. I've got a sneaking suspicion the mic might cut out during that last bit. So anyway, just to reiterate, in case it did, I'm going to do his jacket now with this leather brown, and I'll do a couple of other little bits with it as well. So one thing I will say about these Revel Aquacolor pots, they're a lot better suited to brush painting than the Tamiya ones are. But then I think the Tamiya ones are more aimed at airbrushing anyway, so I might use a slightly bigger brush for some of this. But we'll go around the edges first with this one and then see how it goes. So as I say, I'll go around and do the jacket, and then we'll come back and see what it looks like. Right, so that's his jacket all done. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to do these last few details. So I'm going to do his boots and his belt with this the same brown that I use for his hat, and the strap for his bag I'm going to do in black. So I'll whiz those out quickly, and once I've done that, I am going to give the whole thing a lick over with this gloss varnish, and then we'll start doing some weathering and shading and whatnot. Right, progress has happened. So as I mentioned earlier, I've given him a coat of a nice gloss polyurethane. Well, it's an acrylic lacquer actually. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start adding some weathering to him. So to do that, I'm going to use these, or to start with, I'm going to use these. These are our Crawford & Black oil paints. You get these from the works. They're quite cheap. You can also get a similar kind of set in Hobbycraft, about the same price. But the nice thing about these paints, and those of you who have seen me use these before will know what I'm going to say, they don't have a lot of oil in them. They're pretty useless as oil paints, but they're very good for doing, you know, like oil washes and stuff like that. We're not actually going to do an oil wash. We're going to do some. We're just going to do some like low lights and shadows and things. So we won't need a lot. I just think that'll probably be more than enough. And I'm also going to use some, oh, they do leak oil very well, that's nice. Use some of this burnt umber as well. The other one was burnt sienna, in case you didn't see it. Oh, that's... so I'm going to have a daub of that as well. But what I do is I put it on this cardboard, and it's always a good thing to do with oil paints, is put them on a bit of cardboard, because if there is any oil in there, it will soak into the card. So, right, let me bring the other camera in, and I'll show you what I'm going to do. So, normally I use these cheapo brushes, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use one of these Humbrol brushes. I've got loads of these, and this might be a bit better suited. Actually, wipe your fingers now, they're all covered in oil off of the bottle. That's better. Glasses would be useful at this point. So what I'm going to do is, on the darker bits, like around his jacket and things like that, I'll use the burnt umber. And what we're going to do is just take some of this on the brush and just go around the edges like that. And just work it in underneath. And also, like, the seam between his jacket and the shirt. And also, if I can do it, I want to try and get some under here as well, just to create some shadows. I mean, obviously there'll be natural shadows, but I just want to make them a little bit more obvious. Just create some shadow lines like that, you see. I won't do the whole thing, I'll just give you a quick demo. So, down the sides like that, across the top of his belt. Up the other side. Like that, you see. And then what we'll do is get ourselves a cotton bud, or a bit of tissue, or whatever works, and we'll basically just come in and just basically wipe most of it off. Like that, you see. And what this does for us is it creates some shadows in the recesses, but it also just grimies the whole thing up a little bit. Makes him look a bit, you know, sweaty and nasty. And it also just kind of blurs the edge between the different colours. Just like that, you see. It's quite a subtle effect, but it does make a difference. So I'm going to go around and do the rest of him, and then we'll come back and see what it looks like. Alright, there we go. Like I say, you don't need to go mad with it, just a little bit here and there, just to, you know, add a bit of shading here and there. Now the next thing I'm going to do is, if we go back to our reference picture, you'll see his jacket is actually quite distressed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some of this this brown again, and the plan is I'm going to use it to make his jacket look a bit more worn. So what I've got here is a little piece of sponge, and I'm just going to dip that in the paint, and then I'm going to wipe most of it off on a suitable bit of rag here. And then what I'm going to do is kind of, oh, probably hope I was doing it under the camera, wouldn't it? Is basically just
blotch it on around like the shoulders, the elbows and whatnot, maybe around the cuffs a little bit, and that will basically help to sort of recreate that kind of patchy look that's on his jacket in the picture, where the sort of the top layer of the leather has started to wear away. And again, don't need to go mad with it, but it's just to make it look slightly less uniform, you know, like that. And the thing is, at the moment, it looks very bright and shiny because it is shiny. Once we hit this with a matte coat, it'll all come together. There you go, something like that. It's probably a bit difficult to see with the light shining off it, but probably looks a lot better in person than it does in camera. Once I've hit it with a matte coat, you'll see it will look a lot better. So there's a couple of other little details I want to do, like on his face and his belt buckle and things like that, but I'll do those off camera. And then I will hit this with a matte coat and we'll be almost done, I think. Right, so there we go. Like I said, I've just added another couple of little details to him, just to his belt buckle and things like that, nothing too severe. I've also super glued his hat and his whip hand on. This hand is not glued on because I want to be able to leave the wiring accessible in case of future requirements. So it's like, for example, if I pull on this end here, you can see that wire is actually moves quite freely in there at the moment. So obviously we've got to put the electronics on and everything, but we'll talk about that later. So what I'm going to do now, the last step at this point, is to hit this with a matte lacquer, and then I think we can wrap this up. And here is our finished article. Dr. Jones on the base there, looking rather perplexed. Yeah, this is moving along quite nicely now, this project. I'm quite pleased with how this is turning out. So in the next video we will look at wiring the electronics. That will probably be a fairly short video because it's a fairly basic setup, but hopefully it will be of interest to some of you. So hopefully you're all enjoying this little foray into madness so far. I'd like to take a moment and thank my top tier patrons, Amy and the Anonymous Tosh, for their continued support, and all my channel members, patrons, and all you lovely people at home. It's very much appreciated. And I will look forward to seeing you on the next video. Thanks very much for watching. Cheers. Bye.